Coming up in the Bahamas tonight, the Minister of Education standing behind that ex-con principal. We've got the details.
Also, new police join the fight against crime.
And the ZNS Fitness Challenge is on. The Bahamas tonight, the National Report starts now.
Now in HD. ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight. This portion of the news brought to you by BTC Every Day.
The Ministry of Education has launched an investigation into a public school principal. Good evening, Bahamas. I'm Altaviz Munnings.
And I'm Andrew Knowles. Thanks for joining us. Education Minister Jerome Fitzgerald today said the principal, who served prison time for a manslaughter conviction more than 30 years ago, has had a flawless record in education, and they await the findings of the investigation before the ministry takes any action.
Well, Janaea Noel Ferguson tonight tells us that the Minister of Education is standing behind that principal.
Want us to go and destroy this man's character any further than it's been done.
Minister of Education Jerome Fitzgerald is defending the North Andros High School principal who served time in prison some 30 years ago. Minister Fitzgerald said the ex-convict has served in the educational system for 17 years and his character was never called into question.
Through the years, he has risen through the ranks and gone all the way, of course, to principal. He has a record that is impeccable. From our point of view, we have no adverse concerns or issues with regard to it. We have had no reason from his performance, to have any concern about his position.
However, Fitzgerald says he has called for an investigation and report to be given on how the principal was hired.
I'm trying to determine now the circumstances upon which he entered the system, which is really my concern. And once I get to the bottom of that, then I will state further. He would have gone to the Public Service Commission, and I want to have a better understanding of what that process was when he went.
It's a question that Bahamas Union of Teachers President Belinda Wilson also wants answered. And while Fitzgerald awaits the findings of his investigation, Wilson said the union gave education officials a report on the issue last May.
I don't know what report President Wilson is talking about, but the Ministry of Education would listen to concerns from the public, from the parents and from the community, as well as any concerns that may be raised by the union, and we will make a decision based on that.
Now, this whole issue might bring into question the past of other teachers and educators, but Education Minister Jerome Fitzgerald says a stringent vetting process is already in place, and those already in the system won't stand to be vetted.
If there's any complaint of any teacher or principal, anyone or any staff within the school system, we have procedures now which allows us to deal with those swiftly and make recommendations for those persons to be withdrawn from the system. And so, we continue to be very vigilant from that standpoint.
Janaea Noel Ferguson, ZNS Network News.
In other news tonight, President of the Public Service Drivers Union, Richard Johnson, is calling on the government for full ownership of the public transport franchises, which is presently owned by the government.
Franchise holders simply hold licenses but are accountable to the government, and Johnson says they want more of the economic pie.
We are looking for the outright ownership of the taxi franchise. We're looking for a valuation of it, and we're also looking for the concession for being responsible for the ground transportation services from the dock, the airports, and the hotels. In addition to that, we are also saying that should the government allow this to happen, we could also help our colleagues in the trade union movement.
Johnson added that the membership is also awaiting funding from a commercial bank that was promised, but they have yet to receive, and have presented government with a proposal on the way forward. He said the membership is disappointed that no forward movement has taken place with their issues for the past 40 years.
The investment that was made by taxi drivers would be significant going forward if the government allowed us to become economically empowered in this way. Taxi drivers were always independent of government, but today, or since over the last, I'd say 40 years or so, because of political patronage, we've lost our position on the economic playing field. So politics has interfered with our economic independence.
The investigation into the shooting death of 56-year-old Edgar Dart, a British resident of Canada, is proving to be difficult for officers. That's according to Commissioner of Police Ellison Greenslade, according to what he told reporters yesterday. But he's saying now that the investigation is progressing.
Greenslade says police are looking for more public support in solving the matter, as there are people who are aware of who the culprits are.
And he says the longer they are free, the chances are they will commit another crime.
Dart, who was in Grand Bahama visiting his elderly mother, was killed at her Emerald Bay home on April 8th when 3 men attempted to rob the home.
Well, 7 family members were in the home at the time, including Dart's 13-year-old son, who watched him die.
With this latest incident adding to that island's murder count, Greenslade says while the murders are a cause for concern, there is no crime trend on the island that concerns him.
We need the public to support us. My concern is that if we don't get those bad people off the streets, they're probably going to reoffend. That's the danger. That's why we don't wish to scare people. The stark reality is that the modus operandi of those criminals makes us very uncomfortable, and we need to bring them to justice. 3 of the previous matters were quickly wrapped up to the extent that people were arrested, weapons were recovered, and they've been charged before the criminal courts. What I continue to say, and will say again, many of these persons who come to our attention for very egregious crimes are not strangers to the system. They're not strangers to the communities of the Bahamas. Everybody knows exactly who they are and understand that many of these people have been leading lives of crime for many, many years. And so it's a clarion call that I continue to make, that we need to find a way to separate it out, to take these very bad people that commit violent offenses away from communities so they can no longer offend against us. And hopefully nobody will kill them.
Now to news from the courts. Murder convict Jamal Glinton is a free man after having won his appeal against a 57-year sentence and conviction in the Court of Appeal this morning. Glinton was reportedly the gunman who shot businessman Keith Carey as he attempted to deposit $40,000 at the Bank of the Bahamas on the Tonic-Williams-Darling Highway on February 27, 2006. He was convicted of the murder of Carey and armed robbery. His attorney, Greg Butler, spoke with ZNS News following the decision and explained why the justices of the High Court made that decision.
They ruled that because of the fact that the only evidence against Jamal Glinton was that of a former co-accused, the judge was mandated to give a much better warning to the jury than he did. And because of that, they upheld the appeal, and Jamal Glinton has been freed. They have also said that because the matter took place in 2006, that there can be no retrial.
Glinton was sentenced to the 57-year jail term in April 2012 after the conviction. That was the 3rd time he was tried for the case. The first ended in a retrial. He was convicted during the 2nd round, but the Court of Appeal quashed it and ordered a retrial. Attorney Butler says his client is pleased with today's appellate court ruling.
Based on the ruling, Jamal Glinton is a free man. He will go back up to the prison and be processed out, and he will rejoin society. The justice system has worked. He is being let go based on what was before the courts. Jamal Glinton is a happy person today.
Also from the courts, the Crown opened its case against 3 men accused of robbing Scotiabank in Exuma 4 years ago of $60,000. Anon Oliver, Isaiah Sands, and Craig Roll are the accused of are accused of the crime. The Crown alleges the suspects made good their escape in a stolen vehicle. Roll and Oliver were further charged with possession of a pistol and bullets. The men deny all the charges. In court today, prosecutor Vernell Colley called on the 9-member jury to carefully observe witnesses and at the end of the day determine if the prosecution proved its case. Attorney Raymond Roll represents Sands, Christina Galanos represents Roll, and Ramona Farkas and Seymour represents Oliver. Justice Roy Jones is the presiding judge.
Coming up in the Bahamas tonight, the first leg of the ZNS Challenge is history. Get your popcorn, because you don't want to miss this.
And new recruits pass out for the police force.
And the Christian Council on a convicted sex offender leading a new church. You're watching the Bahamas Tonight.
The news is brought to you by Shell Quality Fuels.